Alright, welcome back to the channel, and I've been wanting to do this video. It's probably part 1 to the part 2 that I did before, where I made a pizza but the dough ball was already made. So I wanted to show people how to make your own dough. It's super easy. You only need a few things, and today it's going to be a steak pizza, so it's going to be fun to make. And I basically just have a measuring cup here, some yeast, some measuring spoons, more measuring cups. We have some extra virgin olive oil. I have garlic infused olive oil, but you can use whatever flavor that you want to. I have some sesame seeds because I like a sesame seed crust. We have all-purpose flour, and I have wondra. Now I like the wondra. You can use regular flour. It's usually when I'm kneading it on the counter. You could put it on your hands. I just like it because it's in the container. It's easier to distribute the flour without sticking your hand in the flour. So it's a good thing. And we have our 12-inch cast iron pan here, which we're going to make the pizza in. So first we're going to start with the yeast, and this is active dry yeast, and I'm going to show the yeast blooming process, which is pretty cool. I don't see a lot of videos that show the yeast actually blooming, but we're going to do that, and we're going to start making this dough. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with here is 1 1/3 cup of warm water. Now you don't want it hot and you don't want it cold, it'll kill the yeast. So I think it's around 105 or something like that. If you have a thermometer or whatever, go ahead and do it, but usually I'll just run the water, and it's just lukewarm, you know. So I'm going to add in first some sugar because the yeast feeds on the sugar. So once it sits there, you'll see it'll start feeding on the sugar and it'll actually come alive. So I'm going to start with 1/2 teaspoon of sugar in here. Get my 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. I'm going to put it in the measuring cup. Just kind of mix it a little bit. Now I'm going to cut my yeast open here. I'm going to add that, and then we're going to watch the yeast come alive. I'm going to stir this in. And it usually takes a couple minutes, but that's what I want you to see is the process here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and we'll wait for it to bloom. You guys see that? It's pretty cool. It's alive now. It's alive! It's alive! So at this point, now we're pretty much ready to start making our dough. So let's move on to the next stage of the dough making. Alright, I'm going to start by leveling off 3 cups of flour. And it's going to take a little bit more flour than that, but that's what I start with. I'm fortunate enough to have this KitchenAid mixer, which works real well with this dough hook here. But you can do this by hand. This is just easier because you can watch the changes in the dough much more quicker than if you were kneading it and doing it by hand. So I'm just going to add my 3 cups of flour here, and I'm going to use this knife to kind of make sure it's a perfect cup. So that's 1. And I always leave a little extra flour in here. I might actually need to add more here. That's 2. I might have enough. We'll add a little bit more flour to work with here. Okay, that's our 3 cups of flour. And I'll just put a little bit more in here as it's mixing. I can add some, and I usually do that with either a spoon or a 1/4 cup measuring cup here. So now we're going to add a teaspoon of salt. We are going to add olive oil, but I'm going to wait until it starts to mix first. I'm going to put in the dough hook. And now we have our yeast here. You can see how puffy and bloomed it is. We're going to add that. And then I'm going to lock the mixer on the side, and I'm going to just start it at the lowest speed. Then I'll stop it once in a while just to scrape the sides. Then I'll add a 1/4 cup more. And I'm just watching it as it thickens up. And I'll keep adding just a little bit of flour at a time. You don't want to add too much flour, it'll be dry. And you don't want a dry pizza. So I'll go ahead and add another 1/4 cup of flour. And what I'm trying to reach here is when it starts to thicken up, it won't stick to the sides and it'll ball up. And now at this point I just add some teaspoons of flour in, little at a time, because I don't want to overdo it. Although you could add more water to it if it turns out being too dry. But you want the dough slightly sticky. And that's the hydration. Because if the dough is dry here, then it's going to be dry after you bake the pizza. So you can see it's starting to ball up in there. I'll stop it again. You can see it's starting to ball up. And I'll run it a little longer on low. And then I'll just turn it on the next speed. Okay, so now I'm going to add my 3 tablespoons of olive oil here. And this is extra virgin olive oil. And then I'm just going to mix it up a little bit longer. ready to move on to the next step here. Alright, so here's where the wondra comes in handy. I'm just going to sprinkle some on the counter here. I'm going to put some on my hands and just a little bit on the dough. And I'm going to pull this out of here. It's very sticky at this point, but that's the hydration. You want it that way because that's going to make it nice, a nice pizza. Otherwise it'll be just too dry. I'll put some on top, and then I'm just gonna just do it like this, just a little kneading. Add more, a little more if it's too sticky. I'm gonna fold it over once. You want to over knead it here. And you don't want to over flour it because it'll be just too dry. So I'm just working the top down and folding the bottom until I get a nice ball going here. There, we have a nice dough ball here. Now I need to treat this bowl, and you can use cooking spray or olive oil just so it doesn't stick. I'm going to place it in the bowl, and here also you can either use the spray and give it just a nice layer over the top. That's so it keeps it moist so it won't dry. And next we're going to just take a towel. I'm going to damp it with the sink, dampen it up, wash my hands up, and we'll stick it in the oven with the light on for about an hour or an hour and a half. And this should double in size. I think the longer you let it ferment, the better. So I usually do an hour and a half, but that's your choice. But it should at least double in size. So we're going to move on to that step. Okay, so we have our dough here, and I want you to note the size of it now. And I have a damp towel, and I'm just going to stick it over the top, and we're just going to put it right in the oven here, and we'll come back in about an hour, hour and a half. Okay, so we have our shaved steak here, and this is from Wegmans. Just buy the steak so you can cut steak up yourself, but this works out nice. I'm going to make all of it, but typically for a small pizza, half would be enough. What I like to do is run it through this KitchenAid chopper here, just to make it a little finer and make it easier to chew as well. So I'm going to do that here. Just put it in there. You don't have to get crazy with the chopping. I just like it a little finer, and it Okay, so the steak is all chopped up. You know, it's not quite like hamburger, but it's you know, it's just easier to work with, easier to chew. If there's any fat in there, it'll chop it up. But this is a good quality. I've already made a few pizzas with it. It's delicious, so it's a good steak. So we're going to move on with some onions and start cooking this up while the dough is rising. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little olive oil to the pan. I think people know how to saute something, so it's basically all I'm doing. I'm just going to start sauteing some red onions. Now these are the red onions without the salmonella, so those are the ones you want to look for. And that's your choice too, how much onion you want. You know, this is probably about a cup and a half. And I'm going to start by just sauteing these, soften them up a little bit, and then we'll add the steak to it. And then we'll set it aside, and hopefully the timing will work out to where the dough is done. and we can actually start putting this thing together. Okay, we're sauteing. I'm just going to add a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt. We're not going to go crazy because I'm going to put just a little salt on the pizza just before I pop it in the oven. Okay, I've been sauteing for a couple minutes. Looks good. I'm going to throw in the steak. It already is beginning to smell delicious. I'm not going to use all of this on the pizza steak, but I can always use it to make subs or something, you know, tomorrow. So we'll keep working at that for a few minutes. Well, that is smelling good. We're almost done preparing the steak. So you could add mushrooms in here, whatever you want. We're going to put some banana peppers, but I'm going to do that right on the pizza. Alright, we're good here. Now we'll let that sit, and we'll wait for our dough to get done here, and we can eat soon. Alright, so it's been about an hour and a half. I'm going to get a look at this dough, and so we can start making this pizza. We'll get a look at it here. And you could see how much bigger that is, and there's nice air bubbles in it. So first thing I do is just tap it down a little bit, and then we begin with the process of just kneading it, but not a lot, just a little bit, because we're going to shape it into another ball. We're going to slice it in half, because this will make like a large pizza, and I'm only making a small pizza, so I can freeze the other half of it and make a pizza another time. And it's still nice and moist, and I'll put a little wondra or flour on top. I'm going to fold it over once again, one more time, and then I'm going to do the ball thing again. Make a nice dough ball here. You can see the nice air bubbles in there. Alright, so we have our ball again, and I'm just going to slice this ball in half. Then this I'll just make into another ball, and I can freeze it. So we'll set that aside for now, because now we can start making our pizza. You want to always start with the ball. And you can see the nice air bubble in there. And then I'm just going to start working it with my fingers. And we have our cast iron pan here. And I'm just going to flip it over once, kind of slap it, and then I can start forming my crust. And then start to get some stretching going on. Take some patience. Once you get it, boy, the pizza just turns out good. So right now is probably a good time to start preheating the oven, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the oven going here. And I do it at 450. Mine only goes up to 500, but the secret to the baking is the higher the temperature, the better the pizza is going to come out. I could put it under my hands here along the crust and let gravity stretch it. Hopefully you won't get any tears in it, but if you do, it's alright, you can just patch it up. I'm still practicing this, so now it's nice I can actually put it into this cast iron now. But first, I don't want to forget, I want to put some, I'll just use some cooking spray for now. And then you can put some just some cornmeal on the bottom. And now we can continue to shape this, which is nice with this pan as well. We can continue to shape it in here. I can see it's a little thin here, but we'll get it. That's why I like the pan, because it kind of lets you shape it. It's a lot easier to shape it. Just takes patience. Alright, it's looking good. So now what I like to do is, and you can use garlic infused oil, or you can put whatever you want on the crust. I'm just going to make a mixture here of my own with a little garlic powder, some pepper, olive oil, and just a little oregano. And I'm going to brush the crust. And I'm also going to brush the bottom. You don't want to soak it, just put a decent amount on, you know, it's going to give some extra flavor. I've had good results with it, so. And then we can begin putting our stuff on it. I do see a light spot there, but I guess that's alright. Not a big deal. You can always take a piece of dough if you want it and flatten it, make a patch for it. I think it's going to be alright. Okay, good enough. Now we'll go ahead and, because I like a sesame seed crust, so I'm going to take these sesame seeds, white sesame seed. You can get these at Wegmans by the Chinese food aisle there. I'm going to sprinkle these around. Looks good. We even have an air bubble there. It's going to be interesting to see. You'll see after that's cooked, it'll be a nice air bubble like when you buy the pizzas. Alright, that's good. Now I'm going to put my steak on it. Put my steak on. Get my steak on right here. steak and onions. And I'm starving. I've not even eaten yet because I've been working on another video. And then I'm working on this one. And I'll use a decent amount. Really just depends on how much you like. It's all up to you. It's like a blank slate. You're the artist, and you make it the way you want it. And then I'll save some of this steak because I don't want too much on here. You don't want to overload it. I don't want to overload it. You can do what you like with it. That looks good. Now I'm going to put a little more salt on the top. This is going to be it for the salt. Then we'll get some cheese. I wish I would have got more cheese. I like to use real mozzarella. If you can do that, it's going to taste better. But this is good too. I think I have enough, so. I always put the cheese on top because it'll protect the, it'll retain the moisture. Otherwise, if you put the steak on top, you could end up with dry steak. So that looks good to me. Then I'm just going to put just a little bit of pepper on top. Now I did forget one thing, and I should be ashamed of myself for it. Is the banana peppers. But I guess I'm just going to have to put them on top now. Or try to bury them underneath. I'm just so hungry. I'm in a hurry. So I'll try to bury them underneath here. But you got to have the banana peppers on there. To try to distribute everything equally. And put some cheese over top of it. You can never have too many of these, I can tell you that much. That's good. What you can do too on the crust, gives it kind of a nice look, is just take some cheese and just put just a little cheese on the crust, and you'll see when it's done how it'll look like a gourmet professional pizza. So that's it. We're ready to pop it in the oven as soon as this thing beeps and it's up to temperature, and then we'll get a look at it. Okay, so we got our beep. Here's our pizza. The oven's preheated and ready at 450. Let's go ahead and pop it in there. And we'll come back and check on it in a few minutes. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. Plenty of pizzas coming my way. Okay, so it's been in there for a few minutes, and I like to rotate it around. I have no idea what that is smoking on the bottom there. We'll just turn it around, and we'll come back in a few more minutes. Okay, so it's been a few more minutes, and I like to check the crust, the bottom, and I usually just use a fork. It's easier to get underneath. There's quite a bit of time left here. Now, this is something I don't walk away. I'm constantly checking it as it's cooking. So it's probably a good idea to do. But I'm excited because I'm starving. So we're going to let it continue to cook until it's done and pull it out and cut it up. Alright, I think the pizza's ready. I've been keeping an eye on it. First thing I do is get it out of here. Now we'll get a good look at that. You can see how delicious that looks. The crust has a crispiness, but the inside is still moist. We've got the delicious banana peppers, the steak, we got cheese. So we're going to let this thing cool down, and we're going to cut a piece, and well, this is the best part of the whole video. Alright, I think I've waited long enough. I'd wait about 5 minutes, let it cool down. And I'm going to cut into it. And that just looks so good. Well, I think it's time. Alright, it's time once again to eat some pizza. Wow. That's super good. Again, you got the crispy crust, but on the inside, nice and moist, fluffy. You got the onions, banana peppers, steak. It's just great. So, another successful mission with the pizza. I hope the video helped people out. So you can make a pizza at home. It's easy. You've seen it. So, I guess that's it. I'm going to have a few pieces of this. And, wow. You can do it too. It's easy. So we'll see you next time. And thanks for watching the video. Hit like if you liked the video. Subscribe. You know, my hope is that I'll get to 1,000 subscribers. So that's my goal for now. But thank you to all the subscribers who watch, and we'll see you next time.